Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fantastic episode of UnderRadar. And today's a bit of a strange one as we cover a little bit of an FBI case considering some murders that have been happening across the US with some strange red seeds happening around. I guess I'll have to call my friend York to help around, but he is a little bit strange. He likes to talk to his coffee. Anyways, let's just dive into this game called Deadly Premonition. Deadly Premonition is an open-world survival horror game developed by Axis Games for the consoles in 2010 and Rising Star Games for PC in 2013. It was published by many teams such as Ignition Entertainment, Marvelous Entertainment, and Mastertronic for the North America, European, and Japanese releases. It's also a reboot of a cancelled game called Radiant Woods, which got canned after its 2007 debut because of technological issues. This game was suggested and gifted to me by a Steam user named Cult Daddy, and this is a game that I was just unprepared for. It's so strange and I honestly don't even know what we're about to get into here, folks. So let's not waste any further time and dive into this game to see if we can find out what the hell it is. Deadly Premonition centers on FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan, though I'd rather you just call him York, since that's what everyone else calls him, as he investigates the identity of the Raincoat Killer, who is responsible for the murder of 18-year-old Anna Graham in the rural town of Greenvale. The main clue behind this investigation is the strange nature of the killing, which was a ritual killing involving red seeds that have been involved in multiple murders across the US. Now York must team up with Sheriff George Woodman and Deputy Sheriff Emily Wyatt as he tracks down the killer, while also dealing with unseen person he refers to as Zach. Deadly Premonition will run you about 19 hours to 40 hours depending on whether you want to beat the story alone or go for gold and achieve everything possible. This game has become somewhat of a cult classic to gamers and it's just plain weird. I honestly don't have much I can gather about the story considering you get some random moments like York talking to some old lady who owns and manages an entire hotel by herself.
Polly, it might help to hear you better if you could sit a little closer.
Oh my, Mr. Morgan, you're embarrassing me. So early in the day, too. I think I'm a little too old for you.
To looking for a set of keys with a specific breed of squirrel as a keychain, to him falling in love with biscuits and using coffee as a means to tell his fortune.
Did you see that, Zach? Clear as a crisp spring morning. F.K. in the coffee. I knew I could count on it. Never fails.
This game is all over the place in terms of its story and characters that I don't think I'll forget about them for a long time. I've heard this game also being compared to Twin Peaks constantly from the few people I spoke to about it, so if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, this game could be up your alley. The graphics for Deadly Premonition are a bit dated for being released during the PS3 Xbox era, but they're still pretty good to me. I enjoy the designs for the characters and the enemies, and everything has a charm to it despite the survival horror theme it holds. There's not much else to say in terms of graphics considering it's mostly humanoids you'll be seeing and the town is pretty bland, but it's not something to deter you from enjoying the story of its game, or the music which we're about to cover. The music for Deadly Premonition is actually pretty enjoyable, and a bit campy at times too. You get some nice jazzy tunes once in a while.
It's about time to get started.
To something that fits the serious tone of the game. To this damn whistle song that I just can't get out of my head. I actually like it, and it really sets the tone for how campy things are gonna get for the scene in question.
Honestly, though, it's been a while since anyone has stayed here.
I couldn't help but notice. Aside from you and me, there seems to be no other guests or workers around.
What's that? The salt's in that white shaker there.
Thank you.
The voice acting for the game is actually well done in my opinion as well. It's weird hearing York speak to Zach.
Zach, can you give me a logical explanation about what that was? Never mind, don't answer. Life is fun because of the mysteries. Right, Zach?
It's funny to hear York compliment a biscuit.
Huh. This is a good biscuit. I've never tasted a biscuit this delicious.
Where in town can I get these?
Well, actually, I baked them myself.
That's amazing. What are you doing in law enforcement? I'm very particular about biscuits, I'll have you know. The balance of milk and butter you've achieved here. Oh my.
And the rest of the unique casts have correct casting for their choices. Though, to be honest, with how weird this game is, I don't think that matters much anyways. The gameplay for Deadly Premonition is a mix from open world gameplay having you run around freely to a third-person shooter gameplay style very similar to how Resident Evil 4 would play. As you guide York through Greenvale, you'll earn in-game money for various things, from finishing the level to even doing simple things like changing outfits or even shaving. But just as you earn in-game money for those things, you can also lose money for things like wearing dirty clothes and such. You also collect trading cards, do side quests, and even have mini-games to play such as darts, fishing, and racing through checkpoints. You also have a hunger and sleep gauge that you need to keep an eye on, for if your hunger is down to 0, you'll start losing health. With that said, be sure to get your coffee to stay up longer and eat all that food you find lying around. The open world aspect of the game throws a bit of realism at you that I don't expect in any video game. You actually have to maintain the cars you drive here by repairing them when you get into crashes and filling up the tank whenever it's about to be empty. You even have places you have to be in the story at certain times so you get a sense of urgency to get there. It became such a strange occurrence for me to play this way in a game. I started subconsciously driving as if I were driving a real car, obeying all the traffic laws I could just in case I would mess up the story if I didn't follow through. Now with all that said, let's finally tackle the combat of the game, which involves you taking down supernatural enemies or even trying to avoid them. How do you avoid them, you ask? Simply cover your mouth, hold your breath, and sneak on by if you can.
Don't breathe. Hold your breath. They can't see you if you hold your breath. Hurry. Like this. Cover your mouth.
If you end up in a situation where fighting back is your only option, then throw down with your arsenal of melee weapons and firearms. At times during your investigation, you'll run into the Raincoat Killer himself and have to do some quick time event sequences to get out. I honestly loathe QTE sequences in video games, so this is one negative aspect of the game, but it's not enough to ruin the experience for me, but rather just becomes annoying once in a while. As you go through the game, you'll also find objects and photos that count as evidence for York's profiling system, in which he can reconstruct events that took place with his detective skills. It's a neat approach to survival horror genre, having this nice bit of detective work around, and it certainly makes the game a bit more enjoyable to play as well. Now before I finish this episode off, I do have a warning for you folks out there considering this game's state. Even though Deadly Premonition is a remake of a cancelled game that got canned due to its technical difficulties, the PC version of this game, as far as I'm concerned, actually suffers from some issues that cause the game to crash at random moments or even while trying to boot the game up. There's even a game-breaking glitch as well from what I've heard, so before you play this game, be sure to look up guides and ways to fix any issues with the game you're having to ensure a gaming experience is as smooth as possible. Deadly Premonition is a game I cannot define, but considering it's a cult classic by the fans, I suppose they could tell you better than I can. It's still an underrated game despite its cult status, and it's a really interesting and fun game that I feel others should give a shot as well. Even if you consider this game bad, I would argue that it could be one of those so bad it's good type of games that you find enjoyment from and don't take seriously. Thank you for another fantastic episode of UnderRadar, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you on the next one.